All right. Let's get this. All right. Just gonna get everybody up in here. All right. Just be patient, everybody. We got about like I think 12 or 13 people total, and I think like 3 people that will not physically make it. They'll be checking in. So just hang tight until I meet everybody in the room. All right. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Still waiting on several more people. All right. Got some more coming now. All right. All right, just gonna wait a couple more minutes. We're still missing like 6 or 7 people. I'll give them a couple minutes. Then after that, I will start. We won't wait too long because we got to get through the material. Everybody hear me okay? Just checking the sound good? All right, cool. Make sure the sound's good. All right. So we still waiting for Rashawn. We still waiting for Lady Mystic. All right, still. Just wait. Who is, if you could type in the chat, I know somebody called in on the phone there. Who's 651-373-9522? Whose number is that? Just so I can identify who that is. If you could speak. Let me unmute you. Hold on, because you're on the phone. You're unmuted. If you can just say who that is.
Hi, Brother B. This is Lady Mystic. How's it going?
Oh, okay. I was looking for you in the. All right, I got more people coming. I was looking for you in chat. All right, so you're gonna be on the phone. That's you. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to identify who that was. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I tried to get in on Zoom, but I couldn't. But I'm gonna keep trying.
What kind of device are you using?
I was using my laptop, a Samsung laptop computer, and when I went to log in, it asked me for my email and password and different things. So I'm not sure
You
if
have an account with Zoom, right? Yeah, because you just got to sign in with the email you signed up with and your password. It should take you right in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep. All right. So we still waiting for Rashawn. All right. Still got like 4 or 5 more people, and then I'm aware 2 people won't be here. Okay, here comes one more. All right. Hang tight. So 3 more. I think we got 3 more people and 2 not shown. So I want to give it a couple more minutes. Just to be fair. But I'm starting at 3:10. Once 3:10 hits, we're starting. All right.
Greetings, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good, I'm good.
Good. How's it over there in the Caribbean, man? Everything all right over there?
Yeah, everything's okay. It's hot, but everything's okay.
All right, cool. All right. All right. All right. Well, just while we're waiting another minute or 2, then I'm just going to go ahead and start. The couple that are not, 3 people that are not here yet, they're just going to have to get in where they fit in. All right. So to give you some of the reference books that we'll be using today, and then I'm kind of give you the format of what we're going to be doing. For those, I know there's 1, 2, there's a couple of you here, Dion. There's 3 or 4 of you here that have taken some of these classes before. We have a couple of new people here. At the intermission, I always give it a 3. It's a 3.5 hour window because I always know we start a few minutes late. The class is about 3 hours. But I always tack on that extra 30 minutes due to the fact I know we're going to be always waiting in the beginning for a few minutes for people, etc. At the midpoint, just to give you that heads up now, when we take a break and come back from break, we do have a group ritual exercise we will be doing. So just to put that out there now, make sure you're able to have some privacy for about 10 or 15 minutes. If you want to, it's up to you. If you want to burn incense for the ritual, if you have any images that you work with, and our cameras will be off and muted. So I just want to give you that heads up now, not spring it on you last minute. Feel free if you, again, want to use candles, incense, or particular images. Even if you have an image of Hecate, we'll be doing a simple invocation of Hecate to get acclimated with her energy. Anytime we do these classes, I like to incorporate some type of ritual working. This way you guys can expound on that and move. Hold on, Lady Mystic, we got one more here. All right, it's 10. Okay, cool. So we are missing 2 people. Yeah, so I like to always make sure we incorporate some type of working, and we'll discuss rituals a little further outside of that. All right, so just put that out there. So when we take our break in the middle of this, about an hour and a half from now, or hour and 10 minutes from now, just hopefully majority of you guys can get yourselves in a quiet space for about 15 minutes or so. All right. I'm saying that in case you got kids, animals, dogs. All right. So I have everybody muted for now. I will unmute if you have questions. Please, the purpose of these classes, we're still missing Rashad. I don't know what happened to him. All right. Anyway, let me make sure. Hold on. Let me just double check, make sure you got the link. I think really needs to, oh, what's that? Oh. Make sure you got the link. Hold on 1 second. Just checking. There was another brother. I just want to make sure you got the link. All right. All right. Okay, there you got it. Let's see if I can get him in here, and then we should be good. All right. I guess that's all right. So that's what we will be doing when we come back from the break. All right. So what we're going to do, some of the sources I'm going to be using, and I would suggest you guys, this is Visions of the Night Side. This is a book I recommend you get if you don't have it. It's by Asenath Mason. Actually, it's by the Temple of the Ascending Flame. It's by several different authors, but it's edited by Asenath Mason. If you Google it under her name and the title, you'll find it. It's available on Amazon. Also, the Draconian Ritual book. We'll be going over an excerpt in here on Hecate that we'll be utilizing. And then there's another book I'm going to be using. I suggest this is really good if you're, you know what I mean? Not just the fact of being brand new and working with Hecate, but it's a good book to start out with. Why? I'm going to start with this. There's going to be some excerpts we're going to discuss here, have some discussion, is because it's a well-rounded book. The author is a chaos magician. but she gives, it's a very short book. It's like, it's more, I would say it's more of a pamphlet. That's the name of it right there. I have the digital version of it. I got it on Kindle on Amazon. It's called Evoking Hecate. And let me type in the author's name. It's Anusin Leante. Let me type that in so you guys can write that down. And I would encourage you to get this book. Again, she has some interesting concepts in here. I like the way she works with Hecate. And it's got a good, I'm typing her name in the chat now. That's her chat, that's her name. And the book is called Evoking Hecate. I recommend you get it. The digital version is only like $3. I think the paperback is like $9 or something like that. I'd probably just get it on digital because it's such a small pamphlet, but if you feel like you need it. She's a chaos magician, and chaos magicians tend to have a good, well-rounded understanding of embodying light and darkness simultaneously. She gives a quick, which will go a little bit of her history and her origins. So we need to know a little bit about that. We'll get into a little bit of it, but we're not really concerned with all the Greek mythology of Hecate. That's not the aspect that I teach to work with. It's okay to know the history because she is rooted in actually several mythologies, even Chaldean mythology, which we'll get into a little bit of that. We ain't gonna, again, stay on the mythology part. We wanna show and demonstrate the importance of her because she's known in the draconian or the left-hand path, working with that aspect of the mother of dark witchcraft, sorcery, black magic, and she has a trifold existence we're going to talk about, and how the best way for you to utilize her triune or trifold existence on your path. Now, how we look at this when we're dealing with her from the draconian or the left-hand path, but that triune or tri-existence from a left-hand path perspective deals with what we call the above, the below, and then that second face is a representation of you. And what that symbolizes, hold on, I've got to admit somebody else. And what that symbolizes is she's the great gap, or bridges that gap, not the great gap. She bridges that gap between the lower and the higher self. That's why she's referred to as the mother goddess of dark magic, witchcraft, and sorcery. She doesn't really have, you won't find any roots with her. When you study the mythology and the history, she's not really attributed to any lunar deities. She deals, I mean, not lunar, solar deities. She deals with the moon, darkness. We're going to talk about all that, the underworld. All mainly black dogs, but mainly all black animals are affiliated with her. We're going to talk a little bit about that, what that symbolizes. Her imagery is strong. So when you're working, hold on, I got another person waiting. Hold on. We got all the Johnny come latelys coming there. All right, hold on. One more. All right. Her imagery is very powerful. Now, when you're working dark magic, dark sorcery, it's very important on your level and how it connects with you. And I'm talking more so when you're working at an altar, a planned ritual. We're going to talk about, obviously on the fly, how to work with it too, because a good magician, got another one. Sorry. One keeps getting bounced out. Okay, that's Mandy. There you are, man. I was looking for you, Rashawn. I just checked the email. All right. Hold on. All right. He's connecting. His audio's connecting. All right. All right, Rashawn. I'm just checking to make sure you got my email, brother. All right. So yeah, the imagery is very important. And when imagery, because we do a lot of path working when we're using this aspect, especially this aspect of Hecate. Path working and dream working is important. I'm going to show you how you connect that to sigils and how you can activate that on a personal level. Now, why I like Anusin Leante's book is because I'm going to show you some examples. She has created her own sigils. Now, if you do decide to get the book, she says in there you can use her sigils, but it's best if you create your own. Now, I want to stress that because this path is about creating your own stuff. We have to get in the mindset of not copying and mimicking anybody's stuff identically, because you're not going to get the same benefits. You're going to find, if you really take the time to apply yourself when it comes to that area of work, creating your own sigils, your own personal invocations, taking the time. Now, I like to do a lot of shit on the fly, and those that have worked with me down here, I don't really write shit out or plan it out. That's just me. And I'm not saying you need to do that, but if you have that ability, that's another good methodology. Or if not, if you're a person that needs to write things down, be a little bit more planned and organized, that's cool too. But take the time and effort to really write it out and put your personal touch on it. You're going to find out that's how you start to grow. You're not going to grow by copying people's shit word verbatim in books. We should never use the books. The books are a tool and a source, or like look at it as a roadmap and a guide to spark, creativeness within you, not to follow it word verbatim. The problem is people get books. I call them book whores and information whores. They just gobble up all these books. They're reading shit, but it's not really doing what the book is intended to. Remember, the book doesn't master you. You master and control the information that's in the book. It's important we understand that. That's not just with this, with Hecate, that's with anything that we do. So I think this woman here, Anusin Leonte, this sister's got a good grasp. And why I like it, anybody that knows me, less is more. I'm about simple shit. Now, if you're a little bit more intricate and complicated, power to you. But I find that over the years as I get older is a waste of time. You can do simple, effective magic with just the concrete root stuff that you need, and you get tremendous results. Some people overthink shit. They make it too complicated or too complex. And then the ritual, you get distracted in the work because you're more focused on, did I fuck up? Did I make a mistake? Did I do this right? Was that in the right place? Such and such. That's all religious, subconscious mindsets that have to be released. First we have to establish there is no right or wrong way to do this. The right way to do this is the way you need to do it and how you see fit that it's going to work for you. So however you lay out the ritual, whatever implements you're going to use, I'm going to give you some suggestions, but by all means, it's not the be all, the tell all. Your goal, and one of your reasons I would hope you're on this path, is to master yourself. Well, the only way you can master yourself is create your own personal path with all of these archetypes, deities, and spiritual systems, all right? So we're going to start with a little history of Hecate. And if you have a question, please, the objective of these classes is for you guys to ask your questions. You can raise your hand to let me know you're having a question so I can unmute one by one. This way we don't have background noise. And please, if you're, okay, Mandy's got a question, hold on. Mandy, what number, what are you under? All right, I see you.
I think I'm muted.
No, I got you. Go ahead.
I just want to know did you get the books that I sent you?
Yes, I responded back to your text on Instagram. Maybe you could also type those two titles in there too to give them as a reference in addition to the ones
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll grab the books and I'll hold them up in the camera. But what books are you going off of right now?
Okay. I'm using, I know you came a little bit late. We're using 3
I'm
books.
going to take a screenshot.
Evoking Hecate. It's this one here. I'm using the.
Go ahead.
All right. I know you had this one already, the Draconian Ritual book. And there's a section in here on Visions of the Night Side we're going to refer to, a small section.
I got it.
All right.
I got it. That's all. And hi, everybody.
That's Mandy. Mandy, if you can type in the chat the names of the books, I appreciate it if you get a chance.
I will, definitely.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so again, if you have a question, I can see you. Just raise your hand and I'll mute you one by one so we keep order and there's not all the excess background noise, etc. All right? All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the history. Most people are familiar with Hecate through Greek mythology. That's the most familiar aspect. Not a lot of people on a wide scale level work with her or are aware of how she's worked with on black magic and the left-hand path. All right, so let's go through a little bit of her origins. In ancient Greek paganism, Hecate is the goddess of magic. Her name translates as worker from afar, which is itself is an interesting definition of what a magician is. She has many aspects and qualities, as we will see, but her main role is that of the goddess of sorceries and enchantment. Though all Greek goddesses and gods have magical connotations, Hecate is specifically magical and represents a patron goddess of magic itself, similar to how certain Christian saints are to be patrons over various things. Many deities in the Greek pantheon are very important in mythology, and their specific character is revealed most prominently through myth, but the myths regarding Hecate are relatively sparse. Now, you'll see her connection with Zeus. She is used in the Chaldean oracle. She has found a way in the Chaldean mythology. You don't find a lot, there's not really hardcore, a lot of historical information on Hecate. That's because we're gonna find out her origins are scattered about in several different mythologies. But as I tell students that are studying, the important thing is not to get caught up in too much of those tangibles, or like to say, some people like to argue semantics and they like to get too technical. What our job is, because we look at these, whether it's Hecate or any other deity, we look at them as archetypes. So our goal is not so much to get into this long-winded historical debate, because bottom line is this: majority of these archetypes, you can't really trace a time on them, especially the ones we work with on the left-hand path. They predate all of the Egyptian stuff, the voodoo stuff, because that's stuff that gets filtered down later. This stuff goes, like for an example, if you take Azazel and the origins of Hecate or Samael, people make the mistake of attributing their origins in the Hebrew mysticism or the Kabbalah, or even trace it back to the Yazidi book, Al-Jil, the Black Book. They go back before that. You can't really put a time frame on them. So sometimes we get distracted in all this historical debate when our goal as magicians is to focus on what does the archetype represent. So like Hecate and everybody else, Hecate, she's a sorcerer. She represents, we're going to talk about her trifold existence. These are her character types, and that's what an archetype is. They represent certain character types that project certain levels of consciousness or awareness to open your psyche. That's what you want to focus on as a magician. I'm not really interested, and this is why in a lot of other schools of thought or other conscious platforms or groups or areas of study, they're getting into all this historical shit. Well, the bottom line is this: the historical shit is going to do absolutely nothing for you, but just put some information in your think tank, and that's cool. But I don't know about you, but I'm on this path to get some results, to improve my life spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. I call it the 5 Ps of the left-hand path. And if you're not on this path to perfect yourself in them 5 ways, just join a religion. You're wasting your time. We're not here to worship. We're not here to grovel in front of everything. We're not here to follow anything. The only person we should be following is ourselves. And Hecate gives you that ultimate spiritual sovereignty and personal freedom and liberty. And the beauty about this path is we're not subservient to anything or anybody. So we have the liberty to move at freedom. It's a beautiful feeling when you don't have to be judged by any criteria from an existing dogma, religion, or philosophy. Hecate is the ultimate liberator of that. And again, her trifold existence, or her 3-fold existence, she bridges the lower and the higher self. And we're going to talk about that because we want to focus on that. Now, there are rituals you can do with Hecate, which we'll discuss, about ingesting her intoxicating venom. They'll call it on the left-hand path. Because her venom, I'm going to give you a ritual towards the end to do with her. When you partake of her venom, they say intoxicating because it can be very intense painful, but at the same token, blissful. And she's one of the few, like Lilith and Nama, very similar. There's very similar energy connections between all three of them. But we want to focus on the archetype and the characteristics that represent her. So I'm saying this as a suggestion. I'm not saying this if you feel like you need to do deep historical study. I'm not saying don't do it, and I'm not stopping you from doing it. What I am saying is when it's time and you're in the chamber room and you're working your rituals and your magic, it's really not really necessary. It's overkill. So keep that in mind, all right? Then it goes on to say, I'm going to skip down because I'm just going to be using excerpts of this. But what is the significance or use in evoking Hecate and magic today? So we should be asking ourselves that question. Why do you want to work with Hecate? You should ask yourself that question with any archetype you work with. And always train yourself as magicians to always have an intent or a purpose. We don't just randomly do shit. And I'm not talking about working the system like via chaos magic. That's random. I'm talking about we all like things outside of the fact that you read something about Hecate and you like what you read and you want to work with it. That's great. But my question is we got to go deeper than that. What is your specific purpose or reason, like you feel like you need to make a connection with Hecate? What is it you read about her, studied about her, that has motivated you to feel like you need to connect on a deeper level? Because I would assume that's why a majority of the people signed up for this class. Other than that, then maybe you fall in the category, and I'm just speaking in general, so nobody take this personal. Other than that, maybe you fall in the category of an information whore. You just like to sponge up information, and that's fine too. But we have to ask ourselves these questions because everything we do has purpose and intent on this path. The purpose and intent, again, should be geared towards mastering ourselves, one, in this order. If you live by those 5 Ps, you should always be working, and purpose and intent is always focused on mastering yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. I always put financially, thanks, Mandy. I always put financially last because if you master the first 4, money is automatically going to come. Trust me when I tell you. The problem is people skip the first 4 and they come on this path and they go right into working money rituals. Thank you, Mandy. Mandy has typed, she put the 2 books. No, she didn't type them in the chat yet. Maybe she could type the names in the chat. She put them up on the screen. The important thing is people bypass their spirituality. Remember, if you don't have knowledge of self, you have nothing. So I always refer to people that haven't heard me say this. Let me say it again. And I'm going to use the mythological and symbolic story for an example of Solomon in the Bible. And I'm saying a mythological story. There's a meaning and a metaphor from his story. And what is the meaning of the metaphor? There's one aspect of his story I always pass on to students. If you use the example for, he could have had, somebody else coming in. He could have had anything that he wanted, according to the story. But he asked for the knowledge and the wisdom first. And then what? All of the things were added to him. Their own Bible even teaches that. That quote, if you read in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, it also states, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. Well, that's basically what Solomon did. And sincerely seeking the knowledge of wisdom. So if you have knowledge of self, one, your mental is going to automatically line up in harmony with your spirituality. You're going to feel good emotionally. The physical part obviously should transition from that. And you should be taking care of yourself, exercising, etc. And then you'll find doors and pathways to financial prosperity are there for the taking. The problem is people come on the path, they bypass the spiritual stuff, and they want to get into all the physical tangibles, and they want to work money magic, and they want to do candle magic, and they want to do rituals for this, rituals for that. But they're not right on the inside themselves. They got a lot of emotional traumas and blockages and issues they got to fix. You can't just bypass that. It's like, put it like this. It's like buying a car that's got mechanical problems. You're not going to get in that car and go take it across country and drive for 3 days. That's how you got to look at it. That's how you got to apply the concepts on this path. You don't get in a car that has mechanical failures and attempt to go drive it across the country. Well, it's the same thing on this path. You don't come on this path and start out of the gate doing destructive magic, or, I'm doing love spells and I'm doing rituals for this or that. Because what happens is your energy, if you know what you're doing, I would hope you know what you're doing. Your energy is stamped on those spells and magic that you're working. So if it's off, if it's jacked up and it's not right, this is an explanation why you're not getting any results. This is an explanation why you are struggling. This is an explanation why sometimes shit gets turned upside down or goes worse for you. Because what will happen is when you open your psyche up to some of these archetype spirits, demons, and entities, they're going to let you know something's not right. And you, for an example, and I talk about this all the time, and Hecate will do this because she deals with great stages of transformation on a very traumatic level. Unlike, say, and Kali does that too, but sometimes what tends to happen is we don't fully grasp what change is. And I talk about this a lot. Don't confuse change you want with change you need. So sometimes an individual's life goes topsy-turvy, it gets turned upside down. They can't figure out why. I did a ritual to open the doors financially with Hecate, but the next thing I know, my boyfriend broke up with me, or my girlfriend broke up with me. I lost my job, my car broke down. So what the deity or the spirit's trying to tell you is there's something you need to focus on prior, because maybe that car is a shitty ass car that needed to be rid of. Maybe the person that you were with, they were trying to let you know these are obstructions that need to be removed and cleared. You didn't look at it like that because you got blindsided with this, I'm doing a ritual to get the latest BMW. And I've seen that backfire on people constantly. So we have to understand that, especially when we're going into detailed work with Hecate, because she deals, when going into the abyss and the darkness with Hecate, she deals with it on a very, very internal subconscious level. So traumas will be brought up. You will face things that, for lack of a better word, can be very emotional. So I've known people to work with Hecate, and it's if they they dealt with growing up sexual molestation, that comes up. If you were abused as a child, physically or verbally, that comes up. I've seen people deal with maybe you were bullied and beat up all the time. Whatever fears she's going to pull out, so you address them and put them in the correct perspective. Not to just, this stuff is not just drawn up and oh, I'm opening up old battle wounds. No, they're opened up because you haven't dealt with them. All right. Anybody have any questions up until this point before I continue? Everybody good? All right, go ahead. Let me unmute you, Yvette. Hold on. Go ahead.
I have a question about Ereshkigal. How does she fit in with, you mentioned Nama and Kali, but does Ereshkigal also fall within the same basic area?
Well, when you're dealing with the Ereshkigal, you're getting into the Sumerian Babylonian. That there is a connection there. When I was talking about the Chaldean oracles, Ereshkigal, though, if you've read the Necronomicon, if you've read any Sumerian or Babylonian texts, like the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, you'll find him mentioned in there. Yes, we do work with him on this path in the Grimoire of Tiamat when we're working.
I thought she was a female. I thought Ereshkigal was a female.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, okay.
If you read do you have the Grimoire of Tiamat?
No.
All right.
I'll get it.
When you're working with, whether it's Ereshkigal, Marduk, Tiamat, that's where she comes into play. When you're working with Leviathan, which there's not really any specific connection with Hecate with that.
Okay.
But now there are some, having said that, there are some similarities when you get into the Chaldean oracles or some of the mythology. She does have similarities to Tiamat. So you will see that Astareth. There are a lot of similarities because, okay, so Mandy's pointing that out in that book. She's got it in. Go ahead, let me unmute you.
Okay.
What were you saying, Mandy?
Ereshkigal is also in the Dark Goddess Craft.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Great.
yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get the book.
Yeah,
It's
she
got
put the.
Oya, it's got Hecate, it's got so many of banging.
Yeah, because that book there synchronizes, and again, I have a digital of that. That book synchronizes, like I know you mentioned Oya too. It's going to show you, when you really do your research and you look, you're going to see a lot of similarities where a lot of these archetypes have similar characteristics. Like in that book, it's going to show Oya, I believe, a Risk-Gal. Manny, I can't remember. Did they mention anything there on Tiamat?
I would have definitely Lilith.
Okay, Lilith. Yeah. All right. Cool. No? Okay. All right, but you will see synchronizations between them. But is there a direct link or correlation historically? No, you can't really find that in any specific text. But again, like I was just saying a few minutes ago, the important thing is whether it's a Risk-Gal, Lilith, Oya, Nama, Hecate, we want to focus on what they represent as an archetype. That's the important thing when you're working magic. But yeah, for your further research, I mean, you can look into that, but no, there's no direct correlation. If that's what was that what you were asking, or?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any similarities and correlations. Yeah.
Similarities, yes. No direct correlation, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You got it. All right. So these, I finished off with your reason and your purpose for wanting to evoke Hecate. So having said that, I'm going to move on. Hopefully you've thought about that. And if you haven't given full thought about that before or leading up to the class, hopefully after this class, you start seriously thinking about that. All right. All right. Then it says, being the patron goddess of magic, she naturally would have the function of increasing magical power. And that's why she's referred to as the dark goddess of witchcraft and sorcery, because she's considered the mother of it. Now, her place in fitting in to the mother goddess aspect, right? Now there's two concepts of the mother goddess aspect. There's the fluffy bunny concept, which is very new agey. Again, you can find new age nowadays in the last 15, or really more so in the last 15 to 20 years. There's a very new agey, for an example, aspect of Kali. There's a very new agey aspect of Lilith. And again, that's dealing more with paganism and earth magic, and that's fine. But there's so much more than that. And I think when it comes to some of these darker goddesses, what those systems of doctrines have done to me have kind of dumbed it down and watered it down, because their origin goes way back prior to that. Anybody, for an example, that has really worked with Kali knows she's not really quite like the way a lot of new age movements present it, because they're on this whole mother nature, mother goddess, she's so motherly, and that's cool. But we know that's not the real deal. When you go into the darkness and you go into the Sitra Akra, into the abyss, and you work with that Leviathan energy, we know that's not the case. So we want to tap on that level because that's their primordial origin. And then everything else from that point merges out after the fact. And we have to understand that. So you're going to find a lot of shit out there. And I'm sure you guys have already over the years in your studies. You're going to come across so much shit. But if it's not really getting to the origin, to me, you just don't want to start. Remember, this is an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. Most paths, they're always teaching you externally and working your way in. That's a huge mistake. We always start with shadow work, because shadow work identifies what issues and problems we need to work on about ourselves. And shadow work really is incorporated into every aspect and everything that we do on this path. Every ritual incorporates some level of shadow work. So people ask the question, I love when I get this question on email, at what point do I know shadow work is done? Shadow work is never done. There are some points where you just don't have to work at it as hard. There's moments where, or periods where you can take, breaks, but you're never done with shadow work. The very fact that somebody would ask that question, in my opinion, shows they don't really understand what shadow work is. You're never going to wake up and go, okay, my shadow work is complete, like it's some course you check off and get graded on. That's not how it works. Because your life is constantly evolving and changing.
So every day, your experiences that you're taking in, absorbing, the energy you're absorbing, giving it, and the energy you're giving off is going to change your situation, your environment, and your circumstances. So shadow work is always there. Is always something that must be done. And like I said, in all your ritual work, there is some form of shadow work, understanding the real you. So from today to 6 months from now, you're going to go through things. And of course, you know, you're going to label those things good or bad. That's personal. That's a personal perspective. And that's based on your experiences in life. So of course, there's going to be situations that arise where you have to, you know, figure out, how do I address this? Shadow work gives you the problem, it uncovers it, and it points you in the direction for the solution. So it's not just about uncovering the problem, it's about the solution. So if, let's use an example, and Hecate is great with this. Let's say you have a terrible temper and no patience, which I'm sure we all suffer from that to a degree. I know I do. And I did probably worse a few years back. I've gotten a little bit better with it over the last few years, but I can tend to have a short fuse. I'm sure we all can. That's a character flaw. That's a behavior flaw that you want to work on, because Hecate would help you understand anger and rage. It's not all a bad thing. See, most paths will teach you, oh, suppress it, pray it, meditate it away. No, anger and rage is productive. It's like anything else. It's an energy. And Hecate will show you how to exercise and use that energy. So what do I mean by that? Suppressing it is completely wrong, but with no control over it and running amok is also wrong. So let me give you an example. Your anger and rage can be transitioned, that passion and power can be transitioned into obtaining some results in some area of your life. So that energy and that rage you feel from something that angers you, you can put that power and that passion into an invocation, which enhances the power of whatever archetype or deity you're working with. But if you have no control over it and say, you know, you're at a red light and somebody cuts you off and you're caught up in your emotions and you pop off at the mouth at that anger, it's possible that person in that car has a gun and can come around and put a cap in your ass. So because you have no control. And that's a hard thing. Sometimes we're caught up in the moment, but we have to understand that. Hecate will show you that. Now, some people tread the path and say, I don't give a fuck. And that's fine too. But as long as you're willing to take the responsibility that comes along with, I don't give a fuck. And one of the key possible components of that is death. And if you're okay with that and you've come to grips with that in yourself, and I'm saying this because I was that dude 15, 20 years that would walk around like, oh man, fuck everybody. I don't give a fuck. I pop off, talk shit at them. Fuck you. I'll kick your ass. And my father used to always tell me, there's a bigger badass out there that can kick your ass. And it took me getting jumped with brass knuckles and having to get surgery back in the early 90s that woke me up and realized you can't. You got to know when. So I use that as an example because it shows you there's ways to channel and express your energy, whether it's anger, rage, love, joy, happiness, sadness. And crying is a good thing. You're going to learn to do that on this path, because when you work with some of these darker gods and goddesses, it's going to unlock, an influx of emotions simultaneously. And I don't know how I could put this in words, but I'll try my best. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced happiness, joy, sad, anger, and rage simultaneously, all at the same time. Literally, I'm talking about all at the same time. That's what Hecate does. She shows you why you're feeling those things. And if there's something you're thinking about working with her at the time you're doing it, she's going to explain the reason. This is why you feel like this. This is what's creating that emotion of sadness or happiness or joy or whatever it is. Now, as long as you're willing to embrace it and not be in denial when it's things you may not like or not feel comfortable about, you're fine. But let me tell you something, when you're working in this path with these archetypes from the dark sorcery perspective, don't try to manipulate the situation in the sense, even though it's clear as day what it is, but your ass wants to try to change it into something that makes you feel more comfortable. I'm telling you, you're gonna get fucked up. Because you can't manipulate or change it until you embrace it for what it is first. So once you embrace it for what it is first, now the possibilities and the doorways are open for you to do, because magic is about manipulating the elements until we fully understand what that element is. So for an example, if you know you're a bad mother and you're not a good nurturer to your children, and maybe you've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and Hecate is showing you that in your work, and you're trying to shut it off. No, that's not the case. You're coming up with excuses and reasons, and you're trying to justify why fucked up shit took place. She's going to make it more difficult for you. And guess what? Something might manifest where you have a complete blow up with that child because you didn't get it. You didn't see it. But until you look at it and you go, and it's painful and as uncomfortable as it might feel, when you look at it and go, you know what? That's it. That's right. I fucked up. You know, this is true. This is why I feel like this. This is why I'm stressed out. This is why I got some of these emotional blockages. And now it can now be dealt with and released. And now she will show you. Because remember, they all, especially Hecate and a lot of these, whether it's Lilith, Nama, Kali, all of them are very intense, fierce, dark energies and warriors, but they have this motherly nature that's embedded beneath it. It's like tough motherly love, not that kumbaya shit, holding hands, running naked through grass fields and all that shit. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about, like, I'm sure a majority of, I know my mom, that's how my mother was. It was tough love. Like, she tell you like it is, whether you like to hear it or not. That's how you got to look at it. If you look at it like that and you're open and receptive to that, I guarantee you'll have success. Okay? All right. Hecate relates to magic in terms of influence. She is more concerned with action than experience in this regard. Okay? And that's important to understand, because some people will come on this path. It's not about, you can have 15 years experience, 2 years experience, 6 months. If your actions and your intents are in line, I talk about this all, hold on, I got Jack. Oh, Jack's real fucking late. All right, hold on, I got one more person coming in. All right, he's joining. Regardless of your experience and time, I always tell people this. I've seen more people progress and get results that came on this path in a few months' time, and then I know people for over 10 years and they ain't doing shit. And what that is because the new person that came in and, you know, with the intent of really wanting to learn. Number two, they're willing to relearn all the bullshit they thought they know, whereas the other one that's been around 10 years, they're all over the fucking place. They know everything. They're dabbling in this. They're doing this. They know this person. They're studying this. And that's cool, but it can become confusing if you're not really grasping and retaining it. So I say that to say, it doesn't matter if you're old, new, if you have a lot of experience or a little. If your intent and your actions are in line in accordance with that intent, this is what it's saying here. Hecate is that type of archetype. So there could be somebody here that's never done nothing for Hecate. I'm telling you, you'll see this happen. Could be somebody in this room right now that's never done any type of ritual work with Hecate at all one time. They might, after this class, go do something and get tremendous results. And there could be somebody in here that's been doing it for 10 years, 15 years, and they still struggle. I'm just pointing that out. So unlike other organizations or religions or dogmas or cultures or philosophies, experience is always drawn upon heavily. Oh, you're not initiated. Oh, you ain't studied this. Oh, you don't know this. Oh, you're not at that level. That's when you're in, and that's why I say we got to release the established, structured paradigms, religions, and philosophies. When you willingly accept that, then you got to play by the rules. Like, for an example, it's the same thing. When I was in Ifa, before I got crowned Oshun and went through all that shit, you were treated like pretty much like you were nobody prior to that. You were just like, oh, okay, you're not, oh, you didn't get crowned yet? Oh, you just got your warriors? Oh, you just got your lekes? See, that keeps that control factor. And in essence, I found out all that shit is irrelevant. You understand? Because really the powers that be want you to keep coming back to them so you can keep spending ridiculous amounts of money to do all these rituals and initiations that at the end of the day, you're still going, okay, what else? And that's where I found myself after being in that shit for years. I'm like, I'm tired of being a slave to these motherfuckers. I'm tired having to keep Oh yeah, all right. You did the hand of a ruler. Okay, come back. Oh, you did your mejes. Okay, come back. Oh, you need. It's like, come on, man. When does this shit stop? And then I found out it was draining the fuck out of my pockets. And then you start to become a slave to it because you're doing it just for the fact to be doing it. And this path isn't about that. So everybody is welcome and has the potential to grow and achieve the greatest heights as long as you're willing to learn. That's it. That's all that's required on this path. There's no requirements. As long as you're open and willing to learn and you're willing to be challenged, let me put that out there too. Because this path, the beauty about this path, you're never supposed to feel comfortable. And Hecate brings that out. You will never feel comfortable. What I mean by that is when you find yourself just doing, like some people will come on this path and let's say they like vampire magic. So they start to put everything aside and they exclusively start just working vampire magic. Don't do that, because that'll also cause you issues down the road. This is why if you've been those that are familiar with me watching the YouTube, if you're on the Patreon or if you take my classes over the last several years, you know I don't stay in one thing for long. I'm all over the place. I don't stay, and there's a reason why I do that. Because to be a well-rounded magician, you have to have a good understanding of everything, not just what you like. Now let me say this. Are there going to be things that you like more than others and you gravitate to? Most definitely. I'm not saying there's going to be other things that you don't utilize more than others. Of course, that's just human nature. What I am saying is don't get stuck like Chuck in one thing, because then you're going to cut off your growth and your development. Because usually subconsciously you're doing that because it's a security blanket. You're trying to latch on to something that makes you feel comfortable or safe. You may not say that on the surface, but that's why you're doing it. And we don't want to do that. So we never want to be comfortable in the sense we're never open to learn, to try new things, for change. And Hecate is going to bring that change. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about her connection with Hermes. Believe it or not, through the Greek mythology, outside of her origins with Zeus, there is a connection with Hermes and hermeticism. So there is that Hermetic Egyptian connection. I do work with that to an extent or a degree if I'm working with more of a lighter side of her nature. And I would encourage you guys to look more into that aspect. And that's an aspect of her that's not really talked about a lot. There's always just the Greek mythology, with the Greek mythology of the Greek gods. But let me read this real quick, and then if anybody has any questions, again, ask, please. All right, so she's more concerned with the action than the experience in this regard. And if her power is consulted from a magical standpoint, it would be to increase the efficiency of the power or influence, or to put it more colloquially, getting things done. So let me just reiterate that, what that means in simplistic terms. Hecate is about getting the shit done. And it's not about doing it, oh, come here, sit on my lap, let me cuddle you. No, Hecate is like, all right, you want to do this, you want to get this done, bam. And it's going to come at you like a ton of bricks. Simple, it's about getting things done. All right, that's the best way to describe her action, as the author describes here. Now, Hermes, or thrice greatest, is also a very philosophical and contemplative deity. Now, I would suggest also Hermes, or who some might know also as Tahuti. I would suggest, if you guys don't have, and you heard me talk about this a lot, if you do not have the book, The Kabbalion, which is the Hermetic Principles of Tahuti, not the Kabbalah, the Kabbalion, Kybalion, by the three initiates, which are the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti, you all need to read that. That's one of the first things I give to any of my new students. That's the first required thing of reading. It is the foundation of understanding your subjective and your objective consciousness. And I always would suggest you go back to it. Let me grab it just so you guys can see it. Hold on. All right, this is the Kabbalion by the Three Initiates. I like the hardback version. It's got like a little bookmark. It's got the nice little gold foil, you know, kind of feels real spiritual. Let me stop. They do have the softback version that's cheaper, but I like the hardback. You need to master those 7 hermetic principles of Tahuti to understand magic. I don't care what anybody says. The path that I teach, this book did wonders for me years ago. I first stumbled across this book probably in the mid-90s, 95, 96. This was the book that started to get me to look more into magic and the darker side. Because prior to that, I was dealing with the, you know, the ancient Kemetic stuff, you know, Egyptian consciousness, Islam, you know, all those schools of thought that were out there prior to that. But this was the first book that really opened my eyes to look at things more on an internal level and spiritually. Study this and master it, because this is going to help you in a great deal when you start applying your magical tools, working rituals, etc. It's an awesome book. Another book for the shadow side, because you're going to need this with Hecate too. This is another book that I've done classes on. I've used them in videos on YouTube, and I've recommended this. I suggest you get this book too, The Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation. Dennis William Huck is the author. You see that? Dennis William Huck. There's exercises in here, literally, to do alchemical shadow work. I would look through the book, read. It talks about the 7 steps of alchemy, etc., without getting into it too long. A great book if you're looking for a book that has exercises to do shadow work, okay? Anybody have any questions? No? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and continue. All right, so let's talk about a little bit of a connection.
Yo.
Go ahead, who's that?
It's Jack.
What's going on, Jay Jizzle?
Not much. So, in your opinion, why do you think that, like understanding those principles make a huge difference? Like, why do you think when you look back at it, like after all these years, why do you think it made a big difference for you?
Right, good question. And I know you're just sparking it because I know you know that. All right. Again, just briefly, the 7 principles, mentalism, which obviously the first one is the most important. All is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. You're gonna find out that principle when you study it and master it is really the key to all magic. Once you understand the power of your mind and how everything manifests from your subjective consciousness into your objective consciousness, which in essential, that's how black magic works. But with the ability to enforce your will to manipulate that reality. That was the wake-up call. Correspondence shows how things correspond with each other on both realms. There's more to it. I'm just giving you the quick 5-minute run through. Vibration, which nothing ever rests. All things are constantly moving. This is why we don't use the word balance on this path. That's incorrect. A lot of conscious schools will use that, and they'll use the system of Ma'at, and they'll say, you must master the laws of Ma'at. Not true. You must master the hermetic principles first before you understand Ma'at. And anything that's balanced, like if you use the pendulum, it's still, it's stagnated. Balance is actually a state of stagnation and stasis, which is a state one at times needs to be in so they can reflect, grow, and evolve. Harmony is different because when the 3rd principle teaches vibration, nothing rests, everything is constantly moving, just at different levels or frequencies. That is important to understand when you're working magic. Very important. So I see you, you see me only because we're vibrating at such a low frequency. But I always use this analogy. If this was a pen, let's just say my finger, the faster I go, the faster this vibrates, it will start to be harder to see because it's speeding up at a higher frequency. That's what alchemy and shadow work is about. The alchemy book that I showed you prior to that's going to show you and how that applies to you and the philosopher's stone, because the philosopher's stone that you're working on is yourself. Okay, so that's important to understand. Polarity. All right, everything is, there's just two. All right, let's use good or evil or right or wrong. They're just different polarities of the same thing. That's important to understand working magic, because you have to go into your magic rituals Your personal morals have to be put aside. There's no such thing on the subjective realm as good or bad, right or wrong, or evil, or whatever terms. Polarity helps you understand that. Rhythm is important because rhythm, you can tie this in to your mantras, cadence, and how that all connects to polarity, vibration, frequencies, all that's connected. Cause and effect basically is karma, right? Not karma in a spooky sense that, oh, you know, you're going to get back tenfold what you did. Because no. Cause and effect is just where you understand what decisions you make and the effects from those decisions. That's it. And then gender, that's something for a whole nother time. The doctrine of gender, it's understanding the masculine and feminine energies. Not just, you have to understand that, especially when you're working black magic, because I've learned what the feminine principle is on the spiritual realm is very much more aggressive than what the masculine is. Contrary to what we know as physical gender on the planet Earth or in human form, it's not the same thing. So it shows how gender is encoded in everything, spiritually and physically, but it shows the variation between the two. And I've said this for many years, for those that have been taking classes or watching the channel, whatever, I've said for many years, I've always said the female archetypes are much more intense and warrior-like than the male. And I work with more feminine archetypes than I do male archetypes, believe it or not. Not by choice, it's just what manifested and turned out to be. So that's why that is an important book. That's the short version. There's a lot more to it. I just gave you the quick version due to the sake of time. Get the book. That should be your foundation of your magic, the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti. Because it can that filters out into every system and school of thought. And then you can have Ma'at, like all the Kemetic platforms teach. You know, everybody that wants to, you know, everybody that thinks they're from Egypt and direct descendants of Egypt and they're the ancient Egyptians and all that shit. Then you can start incorporating Ma'at, because remember, Ma'at deals with the physical realm or the physical principles of life. And the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti deals with things on the subjective or the spiritual. You need to have an understanding of that first before you can even obtain Ma'at, okay? But good question, Jack. Good question. All right. I'm going to finish with this last section here, and then I'm going to go to the next section, but we'll see if we have any questions after this. I'm almost done with this first section. Hecate is more associated with action and results. In a sense, this typifies the natural difference between mysticism and magic, but also their unity. Mysticism is simply magic when applied to areas of introspection, contemplation, and passive experiences. That's mysticism. Mysticism can also be likened to where you just want to do a ritual just to feel the presence or the energy of the deity. That's mysticism. Like, you may not have a specific personal intent goal, but your intent or your goal is just to absorb the energy of that archetype of spirit, just to be in the presence and feel the energy. That's mysticism, and that's fine. And we do that in some cases. That's also done a lot in group rituals, right? When you're doing group rituals or group work, you always, as a group, want to obtain a level of mysticism in your work, if that's, you know, one of the purpose what it's geared to. So understand that. As applied to causing specific effects, if you evoke, E-V-O-K-E, not invoke, evoke a spirit merely to feel its presence, making no request, this is defined as mysticism. Where if you evoke a spirit and make a request, this is magic. So what I was just saying, if there's a specific personal intent, that would classify it as a personal magical working. If there is no specific personal intent and you just want to connect with the energy of the spirit, that would be mysticism. So that's what it means when you hear the term a mystic. And now for those that took, I don't think, was anybody in here? Yeah, I know Raven did. Jack didn't make it. I know Dion's on the Patreon. For those that took the Azazel class the other night on the Patreon, I was kind of going through some of this stuff. A little bit different, not the same way. But Azazel is known as the mystic or the dark initiator because he incites certain levels or energies of mysticism. So we need to categorize, like, now there's a very mystical or mysticism aspect to Hecate too, where some people tap into her mysticism for healing energy. She's known to be a great healer. So if you're looking for healing energy, maybe you have a personal ailment, a physical ailment that you're trying to go to work on, she's great for that. Because remember, sorcery deals with the transforming of things from one state to another. That's why she's known as the master dark sorceress. She's the mother goddess of all sorcerers. Okay, very important to understand that. Everybody clear on the difference between magic and mysticism. Everybody got that? Shake your head. You got it. Cool.
Well, I would say one more thing too. You hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. You're good.
Because what comes to my mind right now is like, you look at like knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, right? So it's like you think that knowledge is like, you evoke it, you understand that once you evoke that, whatever object you try to tap into it, you understand it, and you get knowledge of it. Understanding is when you start understanding it, it teaches you, gives you certain wisdom.
That's right.
And wisdom would be the aspect of just like knowing how to use it properly for your own working. So it's like I can see the stages of things, and then you look at polarity. It's both ways for you to understand how to use it, or whatever you're working with.
That's right.
The evil invoke it. So it's like both sides of it too. So
that's right.
Kind of see how it ties into the Hermetic principles. Like you see how it ties in and all that.
Correct.
That's pretty dope.
No, that's a good point, because knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's why I was saying earlier when I was talking about the parable of Solomon, like your knowledge, and you just hit it on the head. You might have the knowledge, but your wisdom shows if you know how to apply the knowledge. And by that wisdom, obviously, your understanding is shown. It's very similar degree in the 5% teachings. When I was a 5%er years ago, we learned those, and you know this, you studied the lessons too. But it made me also think of that when you said that. And it's cool how that was correlated to the Hermetic principles. That's why I say, and it's now I can go even more deep in this, going to there's 7 of them, and we know 7's on the sacred flag of the 5%. We could go further with it, but you get my point. How it opens up doorways to higher levels of understanding. And yes, that's an excellent way to look at it. All right. All right. So that's the difference between mysticism and magic. Very important we understand that. So we do have a lot of people that are mystics, where some people confuse that as if they're magicians, and it's not really the same thing. All right. All right. Then it goes on to say, interestingly enough, all requests made through her are rudimentary or invocations, supplications, prayers. I don't like to use the word prayer because we don't really use that concept on this path. Are a form of magic under this definition, which means there are many more practitioners of magic than is commonly admitted. With that being said, however, Hecate is both mystical and magical, as with all spirits. She can be evoked to merely feel her presence and gain knowledge of her, or she can be evoked to grant desires. Okay? Both forms are potentially beneficial, and they also apply to other spirits, goddesses, and gods as well. There is something useful in merely feeling the presence of a spirit, wanting nothing more than an encounter with it. Just as there are benefits to having a spirit act as a grantor of wishes, Hecate is no exception. As we will see, Hecate has many specific magical correspondences. Also, yet because she works magic as a whole, they are less important than realizing her nature as emblematic of all magic. All right. So I'm going to stop there for that first section. So that gives you just a general understanding. I'm not going to go into the whole, for the sake of time. You can do her. I'm not going to waste. And this book goes into some of her detailed history and her mythology with the Greek gods and Zeus. I'm not going to waste my time on that because I just think that's stuff you guys can do in your own free time. That's just more historical stuff, and I don't want to utilize or waste any excess time and bore you with all that. I just think that's something you should do on your own. So there you have her history, a little bit of her history and her origin. She is connected to hermeticism, the Chaldean oracles, which I'll try to get to maybe a little of that later in a section that I have. And then we see just some basic elements of her. Now I want to talk a little bit more about her darker side. All right, but before I do that, does anybody have any questions? Okay, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Rashawn.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the evoking part. So basically, that's really connecting with the spirit. I don't know if, well, I'm gonna say kind of communing, I guess, with the spirit, so you can kind of tap into what that energy is about in your own personal experience. And is that right? I mean, I just want to recap that.
Right.
Doing that, okay.
There's a short section here I'm gonna actually go through on evocation right now. Well, here, get this locked in your mind. Invocation with INVOCATION and evocation, as we know, EVOCATION, are two entirely different things.
Right, right.
All right, when you're doing an invocation, say you're doing an invocation for Hecate, which we're gonna do later, what we are trying to do is connect with and tap in to the energy of Hecate, right? Where we do that with all spirits. Right. Now I'm gonna talk about evocation's a little different because you are trying to embody and become the energy. Okay. I'm gonna talk a little bit about imageless or formless voids of evocation, using images like icons, which is important. So embodying and actually, becoming what the energy is through evocation, as opposed to invocations just like inciting the awareness or the energy within.
Okay.
All right, so that's the difference. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that. And that's an excellent question, because it's funny how over the years I've seen people confuse the two, or some people almost think they're identically the same, and they're not. It's very different. So yes, evocation and invocation. And on that note, did you have any other questions? I'm gonna go through it real quick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I bring it up because I remember I tried to work with Lilith, mm-hmm. and I backed off Lilith pretty quickly at that time. And I mean, what I feel like I was doing, if I recall correctly, I was probably invoking. I was really just trying to kind of feel the vibration. Should I continue working with this energy? Which at times, I know that my energy, wasn't necessarily, I guess I could say, harmonized to be working with Lilith at that particular time. So is that a good practice to pretty much kind of get a feel for, invoking, yes, to see if I should continue on with this energy or back away or go forward? Like, because if I work with, from that point, well, eventually going with the Holy Death, for example, and it was like I immediately resonated with that energy. Right. So I began doing constant work where I was, but I backed off of Lilith at that time because I was usually I just try to get a feel for the energy first and then see how it resonates, mm-hmm. and whether I should move forward or I'm not yet, ready to, continue on with work.
Oh, so, no, that's a great aspect. Yes. Now, one thing with Lilith doesn't respond very easily, and she doesn't just respond to anything or anybody. I know there's a lot of people who, I'm not talking about anybody here. I know there's a lot of people who like to think they're connected with Lilith, but they're really not. And you could tell by certain things they say or do. One way of knowing that people just aren't connected with Lilith when everything is just sex. That's how I know somebody that you tapped into an aspect, but you're not really tapped in to Lilith, even though that's a strong force or energy that she works with. Yeah. If, like, I'm bringing this up because of what you said, if she feels the initiate is not really prepared for an example, because remember, Lilith and Naama guide you to the Sitra Akra or the other side. They take you into a whole nother level of consciousness. And what you're saying was, everything you were saying is described the why you were experiencing or feeling what you were feeling is in line with that. So yeah, if you feel like that at that time, anyway, I know not now, but at that time, if you felt that, then that's the correct way to go about it. Because that's also her way of maybe letting you know at that time that, all right, you're there, but not right now. Let's wait a little bit when it was happening to you at that time. I know you're going back. You're talking a little bit in the past, but she doesn't just respond to everybody. You'll also find out a lot of people will share stories of they have complications connecting with her. And the reason why their complications of not being able to connect with her are the confirmation. That's her answer. That's her way of letting you know there's more internal, like, for an example, shadow work you need to do. Because if she takes you through that Sitra Akra and you ain't ready for it, it can be more damaging than it can be helpful. That's why. So the lack of an answer or a response is the answer, is what I'm trying to tell you. And you're able to tap into it as you described and decipher it because that was your confirmation. So that is an excellent way to look at it. And I went through that in the very beginning stages a few years back. So I know, and I'm saying that not from because I just read it somewhere and somebody explained it to me based on their experiences. I went through those things, so I know. And now I didn't know at the moment, but I realized it when I made the connection, and I figured it out after. I was like, oh, that's why I was feeling like that or going through that struggle. Now it makes sense. So yes, that's an excellent point. You should always use your intuition in regards to that, okay? Well, good question. Anybody else? Okay. Go ahead, Mandy. Oh, hold on.
Unmute now. Okay.
There you go. There you
No,
go.
I would say since about around January, December, January, I was tapping into Lilith, and then all of a sudden it was Hecate. For some reason, it went from that to that. I feel like they definitely merged together. I've always been connected to Hecate through my mom's over here sitting talking shit about Hecate because that's her go-to. But right. I've always been connected to her. But from Lilith, Mom, can you turn that down? She's got like a whole surround sound in the background. But anyway, speaking on what Rashad was saying, especially Santissima, a lot of the same energies. Lilith is more of the big mama, you know what I mean? But Hecate has a very, very, almost the same aspects. But the reason why I wanted to chime in was just to say, December and January, I was into Lilith, and then all of a sudden it was just Hecate. And then you put out that you were doing these classes. So that's just confirmation to me that I'm on the right vibration. Right. So right. No, if that helps anybody in the class, I just wanted to chime in and say that before I go too deep and you hear the background. So
no, that's okay. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, hold on, Luz. Go ahead, Luz.
Yeah, hi. So I'm still kind of learning how to let go of the whole way of thinking of this greater gods and
sure.
So I've been seeing your videos. So I've been using the invocation more. Okay. So I can find the energy within myself.
Right.
But it's still throwing me off the evocation because if it's all within, then what are we actually evoking then?
Okay, so here, that's a great question. It's all within so you can draw it out properly. Let me give you an example. All right, if you or anybody else listening have ever done any spiritual work, let's say it's Hecate. Say you go into a meditation, a visual, or a ritual with Hecate. Subconsciously, we got in our mind that we need to see something. Like we have to see an image, an appearance, something in regards to that. Do you have another device on? Are you listening on two devices? Because I hear a bad echo.
No, not me.
All right, I don't know. Okay. So what tends to happen is that creates a blockage because we go into the working because we feel like we need to see this external image to connect with it. You do, but you're bringing it from within. So let me give you an example. If you're doing a ritual with Hecate and you have a vision, you see, whether it's in your meditation, your visualization, a path working that you're doing, and if you close your eyes in that meditation, you see this form of Hecate. You're seeing that because everything you've stamped in your subconscious mind. So let me ask you a question. I just want you to understand this and everybody listening, because this is a great question. Give me, outside of Hecate, is Hecate something you've worked with for a while, or is this new, or?
Yeah, it's Hecate and Lucifer.
Okay. All right, so let's use Lucifer, because you have more work experience with Lucifer, correct?
It's all kind of like all new. You know what? I would actually say maybe even dragon. I think that was, so let's look at the dragon, because that's.
All right, let's look at the dragon. All right. Now, there's a couple of things we can look at with dragons. Are they mythological? Are they real? There's a history of them, etc. But there's images that you have in your mind of dragons, right? Now, how old were when you first started really learning or knowledgeable of dragons? Has it been a while? I'm asking these questions for a reason, to show you.
On this path, it's been like 2 years.
2 years. Were you into dragons prior to that?
Not really, no.
All right, so let's just use the concept of dragons as a whole, not just that you be on the path 2 years. As you're growing up, let's say as a child not knowing, it's introduced to you at some point. As we all grow up, like if we're reading a book, there's at some point we first saw a book on dragons. So we have to ask ourselves this question. The more we start reading and absorbing, say we take a liking to it, so now we start reading about dragons. We're looking at all different pictures, images. We're reading all this stuff that we're storing in our subconscious mind, which is like a computer. Your subconscious mind is like a hard drive. It stores all this stuff, consciously and subconsciously. We need to understand this. So the question you have to ask yourself, it comes from within, and you're really doing the evocation because you're bringing it from within without. So what I'm saying is this: if you were a child and before you knew anything about dragons, and then the first moment you opened the book and you saw a picture of a dragon, did dragons exist before that? Do you understand the question?
Me?
Huh?
They didn't exist before to me, because that's the first thing.
They didn't exist to you, okay? But how we look at that, it comes from within without, that was the first starting point as a god and ruler or a goddess over your path, where now you have accepted it. It is now at that moment became a part of you, and you stored it in your subconscious mind. So when you go into a ritual working now, say you do work with dragons, even though I'm not saying, we're not correlating this event to you as a child, let's just say 2 years ago, you started to get into dragons, right? So at that 2 year point, 2 years ago, you started stamping more imagery and consciousness of dragons in your subconscious mind. So when you go into your ritual work, if you're doing a meditation and you might see a red, a gold, or a black dragon manifest in front of you, or you're seeing it in your visuals, that's because you're the one incarnating it. So it is external. It is external. You do have external experiences in your ritual work. You do see the gods and the goddesses and the dragons. It all materializes in front of you externally. But all we're trying to get people to see is you're the one manifesting it.
Got it.
We just don't want to look at it like it's coming from some outside force. Because now look at it this way. Say, now to finish this, now here's the flip side. Say you never got into dragons, you had no interest, you didn't study them, it's not there. So it wouldn't come out unless what? You got interested and you decided to bring it out. So this whole concept of evocation and bringing it from within without, it all ties into the concept you are the god or the goddess or the control of your universe, because what you take in, absorb, and accept as your personal reality is what you're going to manifest externally on the outside. So dragons are very real to you. You have experiences.
Sorry to cut you off. It's just like, when I look at the sky during the sunset, and it looked like a dragon's head.
There you go.
So to somebody else, they might see something else. But to me, that's what manifested because of what I'm already.
That's correct. And that's real to you.
I felt the heat. I felt everything, the whole experience because of me. Okay.
Right. And that's real to you. And that's all that's matter. Because there's something I always say on this path to everybody. This is not about having to convince or confirm your experiences to others. As long as you know it's real to you, that's all that matters. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have conversation with like-minded individuals who have similar experiences. It just means you need to know there's a place and a time. Now, if you had somebody you knew that had similar experiences, now you guys have common ground. So you could talk about that on a whole nother level. But you're not going to talk about that to a sanctified Christian, because they're going to be like, oh, this she's a little bit out there. So that's what I'm trying to, that's what this whole thing is about. You're the one creating that manifestation. There is an external experience. It is external, but it starts from within, not from without. It's not coming from somewhere out there to you. It's coming from in here, manifesting itself to you. That's the difference. That's all. So hopefully that gives you some clarity.
No, yeah, for sure. Cool. Thank you.
All right. So not to stay on the invocation too long, because we're almost at the halfway point. I want to finish with one last thing, then we're going to take our break. So everybody understand the difference between invocation and evocation. Are we clear on that? Okay. We got that? All right. And again, invocation, which we're going to do later, is just, that would be more along the line of a mysticism aspect, which we're going to do later, just to feel the energy and the presence of the spirit. That's what invocation does. Okay, that's it. But there are great differences between the two. Make sure we understand it's not the same thing. All right. So the last thing I want to do before we take our break and come back and do our exercise, our invocation. Hold on, bear with me. I know I marked the page, which I'm terrible. Oh, here we go. Terrible at doing. All right. Here we go. All right. So let's talk a little bit more of the darker aspect of Hecate. All right. I'm going to go into a section in the Visions of the Night Side. This book is actually written by multiple authors. In this section, this is written by a woman named Celine. She contributed this to the book. And I found this section very pinpoint and helpful. I'm not going to read her personal experience. I'm going to skip that. That's irrelevant, but I'm going to read some of the foundational information she has on as the dark mother goddess of witchcraft and sorcery, which I think is very important. All right. So she goes on, Hecate is called the mother of gods, queen of witches, queen of hell, heaven and earth. That's important to understand because symbolically, heaven and earth, right? The above and the below and the aspect of existence, which is in the center, which is you, confirms everything I say. There is no such thing as above, so below. As within, so without. It's showing you it's all interwoven around you. Kind of goes back to what we were just talking about into Liz's question. The spiritual realms exist inside of you. It's like the movie The Matrix, where they try to show you that the veil of the spiritual realm is so thin, it's like we're all caught up in this matriarchal system that we only bridge it when we're awake and we're vibrating at a certain frequencies, then we really see. So you got to look at the spiritual realm and how these spirits work look at it as a thin veil, and you can stick your finger through it, this liquidy thin veil, literally. So that's really the sacred hidden meaning of as above, so below, as within, so without. It just means it's all interwoven around you. Because some religions teach you to look up for God, right? Some religions tell you if you're bad, you're going below. Even some left-hand path satanic religions are too focused on the below. Whereas Hecate is showing you the as above, so below is really the within and the without. She's the bridge between that. And that's important. So when she's given or referred to as the title, the queen of hell, heaven, and earth, that's one of her hidden meanings of a threefold existence. She is the ruler and the master of magic, witchcraft, and sorcery on the heaven, hell, and earth plane. And we correlate that to ourselves. That's why you'll see her depicted sometimes with 3 heads in some images. You've all probably Googled it. One of the famous images, you see her looking straight ahead. One head is looking to the right, the other head is looking to the left. Almost similar to the Set Heru image of the 2 heads in the one body, where you see Set facing one way, Heru facing the other way, which talks about the harmony within the Black Adept, which is similar. It's not talking about a trifold existence, but the Set Heru image is important to us because it shows we need the harmony between light and darkness to master ourselves. That's what that Set Heru image is. And I've done classes on that. That is an important thing to understand. All right. She is the lunar goddess. It was she who created the solar god Lucifer. Now that's in some grimoires. They say she's responsible or gave birth to Lucifer. That's a mythology. I would only incorporate that. That is incorporated in some draconian work as ritualistically. I wouldn't take that literally as like say a religious person would in a biblical story. It is a mythology. I just want to be clear on that. Her brother, son, and lover, and Belial and other gods. That's another, you might see in some grimoires where she's considered the wife of Belial, because Belial is very similar to Lucifer in energy, and sometimes they're confused for being the same thing, but they're not. They're different masks or archetypes. She is also the source and origin of all magic, also black magic. When Magna Mater appears at the crossroads, she comes in the company of her dogs, phantoms, and specters. Now, it's important you know what specter spirits are. They can read your subconscious mind. And this is why I say you have to be careful with working with Hecate. Because if you start bullshitting yourself, Hecate commands the specter spirits. So you're going to fuck yourself up if you're trying to, look, that's why I said earlier, you can't try to manipulate the situation with dishonesty. Because specters are at her control and her command. And what specters do is, for an example, if you're doing a work and you're thinking about your grandmother, the specter can read your subconscious mind and appear in the form of your grandmother, but might have another intent. Some call them trickster spirits, which I don't like to use that word, because it's only a trick if you can't identify it. You'll know their presence when they're around, because you see it might be your grandmother, but something within you is saying something doesn't feel, and you know. And then it's as easy as commanding the spirit to reveal itself. Well, Hecate has a funny way of using specters to make you realize shit. So I want to throw that out there. So it's very important to understand what specter spirits are in relationship to her and how she works. All right. It is she who bestows on witches the power over the forces of nature. The mother loves wild animals, wolves, snakes, and hounds. Such is the goddess of my visions. In this form, she manifested to me in my dreams and through the eyes of my soul. Now, I always see Hecate. Sometimes I see her hair. She has in my work and meditation, her hair is all snakes. It's like black cobras and snakes, and that's how I always vision her. She always carries a staff with snakes. I've done workings where I've gone into her underground cave, and as I walked, some of my meditations and path working with her, as I walked into her underground cave, some of these spirits, she kind of used to attack me and bite at every part of my body. But what they were doing when they were biting and devouring every part of my body, at first it felt painful, but then it was like I was being freed and liberated from a lot of shit that I was dealing with. And then she would approach me with this chalice, with this, it looked like black tar in there. And I don't know, that's the best way I could describe it. And I would drink from the chalice and it would burn the shit. And when I felt it going down in my chest, burn the shit out of me, burn the shit out of my chest. But after the burning would subside, I would feel this feeling of pure bliss. So this is how she works. And that's her way of working on you to remove those poisons, those toxins that you got in you spiritually, or that things you need to be aware of. So that's just, again, that's a personal experience. You're all going to have your own personal experiences, but I'm just confirming some of the descriptions that this particular author is describing is on point. I have also seen her guarding her palace. She'll stand at the doorway of a cave with black dogs with red eyes. Some of you might experience that in your work. They kind of look like, I don't know, like alien pit bulls is the best way I can describe it. And they guard both sides of her. So black dogs are very fond of her, not just dogs. I know I mentioned here snakes, hounds. They say in some grimoires, anything black. Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Mandy.
Almost like the dogs in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, there you go. That would be a good way to describe it. Correct. Yep. Something like that. Some alien extraterrestrial looking. Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, you guys will all have your own personal experiences too. All right. So the last section, and then we're gonna, in about 5 minutes, we're gonna take a break. Let me get through this last section, and I'll ask you guys if you have any questions. We'll take about a 10 to 15 minute break, and then we will come back and do our invocation, and then I'll finish with the last section I have to wrap it up. Man, this shit is flying. I felt like I've been doing this shit for 15 minutes. My Hecate is the end and the beginning. Mystical transformation through death into rebirth. So she's real big on killing and destroying a lot of aspects of yourself, because when you work with her in the abyss and the void, it's about going into the abyss and the void and dying literally on a multitude of levels and being re-resurrected and regenerated, renewed. She does not grant anything to the weak. She helps, but she wants her children to be strong. Hecate is benevolent to all her children, man, animal, or plant. Yet at the same time, she is responsible for the destructive force of magic and the cruelty of the night side. Okay, make sure we understand that. She rules our lives and destinies. How does the Black Mother lead to the light or the intellect? Let us remember that she holds 2 burning torches in her hands, and you'll see that in a lot of her images. This refers to her power by describing her fight with the giants during the War of the Giants. Now that's going back to the Greek mythology, okay? Just so you know. When God struggled to defeat these fearsome and dangerous sons of Gaia, or Mother Earth. Kubiak points out that Hecate wears a shining tiara, or a crown. Again, darkness emerges with light. That's what going into the darkness is about, right? You must go into the dark to do the work of the light, right? There's a saying in the Bible that we always learn as Masons in the lodge years ago: the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not, right? They'll tell you that's Jesus in Christianity, but there's a deeper meaning to that in mysticism. That light that shines in the darkness is the intellect that only you can tap into and see what real knowledge or light is when you're in the darkness. It's also likened to the biblical quote in the very first chapter of Genesis, the first 2 verses. When God said God's spirit roamed across the form and the void of the waters. It was in darkness. It was in the void. And then the next verse says, and then God said, let there be light, which is confirmation. God existed in the void and the darkness before light even existed. So how can darkness be evil like everybody promotes it? Can't be that evil if God existed in it, or his point of origin is in it, even in religious mythology. This is what this is talking about. And this is why when you go through a Masonic lodge or a lot of those esoterical orders or initiatic orders, you're blindfolded because you're supposed to see that divine spark and see in the dark. And this, the pineal or the third eye, is the eye that's used to see, because that's where the intellect is sparked. So you see in the darkness, you see the light in the darkness by way of the activation of the pineal. I'm saying all that and giving you the Masonic connection to it, because this is what you do when you go into the dark and you work these rituals. You're kind of literally doing physically what a Mason does in their degrees inside the lodge. So you have to go into the darkness to see the light. And we work both on this path. It's about embodying light and darkness simultaneously. That's what Lucifer represents. That's why he's called the light bearer. Because when you go into the dark, you see the light or the intellect that Lucifer, what he represents. And that's what makes him unique more than any other archetype, because he is the one that creates harmony with both of those aspects. No other deity does that. That's his purpose. That's what a Luciferian's goal and objective is. They're constantly seeking illumination. Not in that old fucking conspiracy shit that everybody gets sucked into on YouTube and the internet, the Illuminati, and, you know, they're this secret fuck. Like I said, anybody that tells you that shit, outside of them reading it on the internet or seeing it somewhere, how would they know if they're not a member of the Illuminati? And it shows they don't even know what the Illuminati is. Like when people say this, oh, Jay-Z and Beyonce are in the Illuminati. What the fuck are you basing that on? Because of some YouTube video that you watched? Because you saw Jay-Z doing this in a picture, right? Oh, he's in the Illuminati. No, you read that shit somewhere, heard it somewhere, or there was some other person doing a lecture that he got that or she got that conspiracy theory, but you can't prove it unless you are in the Illuminati and you got firsthand proof. So, and people don't even know what the Illuminati really is. If you're a real Luciferian and you're in the Illuminati and you study real Luciferianism, it has nothing to do with that. Luciferians are more in tune spiritual than Christians are, Muslims and Jews combined. Okay, it's a very highly evoluted spiritual path when you understand it, because we're willing to embrace the light and the darkness simultaneously. It's a painful but yet joyous, blissful experience. That's what we do as Luciferians and working with Lucifer, okay? So it's important we understand that. So then it goes on to say, I'm gonna skip down here. Her name can be translated as the she that operates from afar, which the other author said in the same book. Hecate is a primal goddess. She does not come from Greece. So here, this is why I didn't want to get into all the Greek mythology, because it's overkill. Do that in your own time. Here's why I said earlier, And you could do this research on your own, why it predates, goes way beyond the Greek mythology. All right. She does not come from Greece. She appears much earlier in Asia Minor. From publications released by Lodge Magan, we learned that she was first to emerge from chaos. Now, in that, you'll see her similarity to Tiamat, because we know Tiamat was the mother or birthed chaos by her sons. When she was slayed by Marduk, that's symbolic, because from her 7 sons of chaos that were born and birthed into the universe. So there's a significance in that story. In this story that the author's talking about here, when you read it, you can liken the similarities, very similar to Tiamat. The story almost sounds identical. That's how close it is in similarity, okay? So she was the first to emerge from chaos. Her loving care that she offers to man is also offered to the gods. Her loving care, everyone remembers the sad story of Demeter and Persephone. Demeter's sister, the lover of Zeus, had a daughter. I'm going to skip all that because you can read that story on your own. The primordial goddess had torches in her hands, but she had no knowledge of what had become of the young goddess Demeter, right? So what I'm going to skip down here, what the 2 torches represent, without having to read and go through the whole thing. It represents, I'm going to even use another Masonic analogy. When you, on the 2nd degree, and really that ties into Masonry, on the 2nd degree of Masonry, when you take your fellowcraft degree, for an example, when you walk in from the ante room into the lodge, there's 2 pillars. They call the pillar of Jachin and Boaz. They represent these 2 existences. You come in, the pillar on the left represents a state of not knowing, not being aware. The pillar on the right represents what you leave at in a state of awareness or knowing. That's what the 2 torches represent when you see in some of her images that she's carrying. It represents one stage, a stage of not being aware. Look at it as a stage of being a newborn, a young babe. And then the stage of awareness. That's Masonic in nature too, because as we know, Masonry incorporates a lot of the mythologies and historical religions and grimoires. If anybody here has traveled through a Masonic lodge like myself, then you have an understanding of that. So that's something that I would look into, all right? And then the last thing, we got to take this break. Actually, you know what? I'll save that. I'll incorporate that last little section with the last, after the working we done. Let's go ahead just so we stay on schedule and on track. All right. So real quick, does anybody have any quick questions before we break? If not, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, 10, 15 minutes. Everybody good? All right. So when we come back, again, you want to go to the bathroom, get something to eat, whatever. When we come back, try to put yourself in a area where you can have some privacy for about 10 to 15 minutes. So we can do hold on. Yeah, Manny.
We're going to do a ritual?
Yeah, we're going to do
What do we need?
Well, okay, so you came on a few minutes late. I forgot.
Sorry about that, guys.
You don't need anything in specific, just yourself. But if you want, I was saying earlier, if you want to use any candles, incense, or any symbols connected to Hecate, that's fine.
Got you.
Be creative.
Okay.
Do whatever you want.
All right, got you.
All right. So if anybody wants to, make sure you set your little setup up. Again, our camera, when we start the ritual, the camera, everybody will be muted. And we'll have some ritual music. And it's kind of going to be like a guided meditation. You'll just listen to my voice, follow the instructions. So get yourself prepared for that. And let's be back here. It's 4:46. Let's be back here. Let's get back just a couple minutes before 5 o'clock, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and mute my thing and turn my video off. I'll see you guys in a few. All right. Let's make sure we got everybody back. Hold on. Charmaine's for the lid. All right. All right, we got everybody back. All right. Just want to make sure we got everybody here. One more minute. All right. Person is waiting. What the hell is that? Damn. They're real late. All right. All right, so what we're going to do here, because we're working, this invocation is centered around, hey, how you doing, Charmaine? Can you hear me? All right, we're getting ready to go into our ritual exercise. That's all right. I know I'm recording it for you because I know you couldn't be here for the whole thing. So I'm gonna mute the mics. I don't know if you're able to be in a position where you have some privacy for about 10, 15 minutes. If not, that's fine because I know you're working. All right, so what we're getting ready to do, since it's the draconian aspect or the dark aspect of Hecate, we are going to be invoking. So it's going to consist of, this exercise consists of what we call a decompression, which we always do in the beginning, which is a brief breathing exercise. Hold on a second. Okay, so it consists of a brief decompression. Just you basically, follow the instructions of my voice. It'll be a brief breathing decompression exercise in the beginning. We are going to go into a chant which increases and enhances the dragon or draconian energy, which is Vovin. I want to give it to you now. You might have read it in the Draconian Ritual book, Vovin. It incites the draconian current or energy of Lucifer, because remember, all this falls up under the energy of Lucifer and the Luciferian energy. All right. You'll see me end the chant. The second chant we are going to do that precedes that is Hu, H-U, literally H-U, Hu, which is the creative force of will in ancient Egypt. It goes back to Hu-He, because anytime we're working magic, we're enforcing, obviously, our creative force of will on the situation. So it's an incantation they used in Hecate or Egyptian black magic. All right, so again, Vovin is the chant you'll hear when I go into it, and Hu. Hu has a very healing vibrational element for those that have done it before. Some of you guys know. And then there'll be periods of brief meditation. After we do the breathing, there will be a brief meditation. We'll go into the chant. There'll be a brief meditation, and then we will finish with the invocation and the Hu. And again, and we'll close out. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do. I would say max 15 minutes. All right. Do we have everybody here? Jack's having a problem reconnect, so I can't really wait. All right, hold on one sec. All right, So we got our opening and our closing. We are ready. All right, so that's pretty much it. Everybody's situated, good to go. So I will ask those that have their cameras on, go ahead and turn your cameras on off. I'm sorry. I'm going to mute everybody. I'm not going to allow anybody to unmute themselves. All right, so we got everybody on mute. Hold on. All right, everybody got their camera off. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. All right, let me go ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and start the music, and then we are going to go ahead and just, again, listen to my voice, okay? All right, go ahead now. We're going to go ahead and take 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. On the 4th breath, you're going to go ahead and take a very deep breath, retain it for as long as you can, and then exhale it out through your mouth, puckering your lips like you're whistling, all right, on the 4th breath. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. I call you goddess of the moon, lady cloaked in the night and the robe of stars, mistress of life and death. I invoke you, lady of blood and witchcraft, great mother, eternal witch, come forth to us. Just relax and meditate for a moment. In the name of the dragon, Lucifer, come. In the name of the dragon, Lucifer, come. In the name of the dragon, Lucifer, come. We will now do the Vovine chant 11 times. Vovi. Vovi. Now see yourself by dark black waters. As you're walking along this lake of black water, everything's dark around you. The trees, the soil. As you keep walking along the edge of this lake, you look to your right and you see a cave. Start to walk over to that cave. As you get closer to the cave, you see an opening. In the air, you smell a metallic smell of blood. It smells strange, but yet intoxicating at the same time. See yourself now walking into that cave. As you're walking in that cave, entering further and further, it's dark, it's cold, but that metallic blood smell is getting stronger. As you're looking straight ahead, you see movement, you see shadows, but you can't decipher exactly what it is, but you know there's something ahead. You continue to walk towards it. As you get closer to the shadows, you start to feel something on the floor wrapping around your ankles. As you look down, you see black serpents starting to wrap around your legs. As you approach closer to the shadows, it's almost as if you're in a race to get closer to the shadows as these snakes continue to rise up from the ankles of your feet and wrap and cover your entire body. Something in you is telling you that you need to get closer to the 3 images now that you can see. You see it's 3 now. It almost seems the closer you get, the farther they get away. The snakes are now engulfed from ankle to the center part of your chest, and they continue to work their way up. You continue to try to struggle and race towards the shadows. Now you see an image of a woman with 2 black dogs. As you see that, the snakes now are completely covering you from head to toe. You can't see anything. The stench of blood is getting stronger. You feel you're getting closer, but you still can't see anything. Now you feel the presence, that you're standing in front. You sense it's Hecate, but you can't see her. And you can hear the movement of her 2 black dog companions around her. You feel something touch you on the top of your head. And now the snakes start to slowly dissipate and fall down to the ground. You can now see her standing in front of you as the snakes start to dissipate. She's standing there, holding a chalice. She lifts her right arm and bites her wrist and draws blood from her wrist into the chalice. You're just standing there taking it all in. The cold cave. The 2 black dogs circling around you. And Hecate, however you see her in your mind's eye. She now extends the chalice out to you and tells you to drink from it. You take it. You bring it up to your mouth and you drink. Now let be and reflect. Let's now invoke her presence and welcome her in. I am Hecate, mother of witchcraft, queen of all that dwell in heaven, queen of all that are pure upon earth, queen of all sorcerers of hell, goddess of the three faces. I am the lady of the crossroads, and I lead the soul into the underworld to find the wisdom of the ancients. My path is black as the night, eternal and never ending. I am the queen of all herbs that heal and poison the body of man. I am Chthoniya, and I rule the mysteries of the earth. I am Inadia, and I open the path into the night. I am Cladiokos, and I hold the keys to the gates of the void. I am Phosphorus, and I carry the torches that illuminate the way. I am Triodotus, and I stand at the crossroads of heaven, hell, and earth. I am Proplia, and I guard the doors of the night side. I am Opotropia, and I protect travelers on their journey. I am Propolos, and I accompany the soul on the quest for knowledge. I am Soteria, and I guide man through the labyrinths of the unknown. I am the goddess of the night, the lady of the crooked path, the mistress of the moon, and the keeper of the keys. With my torchlight, I guide the soul on the paths of darkness. Through ancient crafts, I reveal forgotten secrets of witchcraft. With my potions, I poison the senses, and I open them for the vision of the other side. With my sacred fire, I awaken the spark of immortality in the soul of man and woman, and I teach the mysteries of transformation, so that man may travel into the heart of the underworld. I carry torch through the endless night. I am the queen of shadows. I am Hecate. Let's briefly meditate for a moment. And let's close with the who 3 times. Creative force of will again. You now look at Hecate. You have a quick moment of personal communication with her mentally, and you turn and start to walk out towards the exit of the cave. back into your mundane existence. See yourself now where you are. If your eyes are closed, open them, and everybody say with conviction, "So it is done." All right, we are back. Everybody can, if you had your camera on, if you want to turn it back on, turn it back on. And we will finish up. All right. How does everybody feel? Good? Everybody back from the dead? All right. We'll talk briefly about that. And then I'll just kind of take your questions. I had a little something there. I'll breeze through that. Want to kind of push this up to 6. I see there's a couple questions in the chat. I'll address those. Real quick, the exercise / ritual that we did is more of an exercise than it is a ritual. It's a meditation / visual exercise, and I try to utilize similar things like that in these classes. That type of work is heavy upon the imagery and your mental powers, which a lot of magic obviously is centered around that. You're going to find out the more you grow on this path, that's your strength, your ability. It's not just about the physical things, which that has a connection, but you have to have the ability to be able to use the full capacity of your mind. It's a very subjective ritual, so you have to create it. And one thing I want to point out in that exercise, I didn't dictate to you how to see Hecate. I said, see her as you see her. And I did that for a reason, because I'm sure all of you had your own vision to some degree. Now, if you didn't see anything or feel anything, that's okay too. That just means there's more work to do. The objective in a working exercise like that, after this class, when you have time, you should take down the notes of what you saw. It all means something. It all symbolizes something, and it's connected to your subconscious. Whatever you saw in that ritual, when you get time a little bit later to sit back, reflect, and marinate on it for a little bit, take down the notes of what you saw and see what is projected from what you write down to your consciousness, because there's a lot, or will be a lot, of messages and important information for you. And try to be as detailed as you can if you can remember, or if it's easy for you to remember. If you saw other animals, other images, if you smelt or sensed other things, if there was other imagery outside of what took place in the working, write all that down. It's going to tell a lot about what's going on the inside of you, and that's the purpose of that. We want to uncover. Now, you could have saw other things that weren't part of the actual guided visualization. I know we've done that before. You might have saw little children, right? And that usually, people that see that, that sometimes happen if somebody miscarried or lost a child. Hecate will sometimes do that. It could be any of those things. I'm just giving you an example of past things that have come up in the past. So even if it doesn't make sense to you, write it down, go back and reflect on it. Everybody understand that? All right, cool. All right, so for the next 30 minutes, let me address some of the questions. I had a little section in here on Hecate. I probably just breathe. It's really, you can read it yourself for the sake of time. Let's get to you guys' questions and let's have a final discussion. I think that's more important. I would refer to you in the Draconian Ritual book. What I'm not going to read for the sake of time, I'm going to give you the page. I would suggest that you read pages 69 and 70 when you get a chance. It gives you more of the draconian aspect. I mean, some of the key things I can point out real quick without staying on it too much. I don't want to stay on too much time. The Vovine chant is something you should incorporate in your regular practices. It invokes, it's basically, you say 3 times prior, in the name of the dragon, Lucifer come. And Vovine basically is invoking the dragon energy of Lucifer. You can incorporate that pretty much into any of your work, just a suggestion. Page 99 has the correct way to open a draconian or a draconian Lucifer working that can be applied to in any work on this path. And that's on page 99. I would tell you to look for that. If you're looking for a good way to open and sanctify your sacred space. Another aspect that I highly recommend is the Necrominion book. And also it's in Set the Fury of Egypt. Asenath Mason and Michael W. Ford both use or suggest a casting the hermetic circle out of Charles Pace workings. We don't banish on this path. We don't believe in banishing anything. All energy is productive. Okay? So what we do, and when we do this type of work, we lock all that energy in our sacred space, whether you're casting the circle or you're drawing the trident of Lucifer in a sigil form over your altar and the draconian opening, it does the same thing. Because all power comes from the trident of Lucifer. It's a powerful sigil that we use on this path. All right, so either or, but you should get in the practice of sealing and locking in the energy in your ritual space when you go to work. Not banishing. Don't do that banishing ritual, the lesser pentagram. That's all watered down religious Kabbalah stuff. It's not something I advocate or encourage. I'm not saying you can't do it, but the question I would pose to you, why would you want to banish or destroy energy when our job as magicians is to control all energy, regardless of how we describe it, chaotic, negative, good, bad, we're the controllers. And we need all of those energies. It's about making harmony out of them. That's why we don't banish on this path. I don't recommend you do that. Damn, Jack's still trying to what the fuck happened there? All right, so just some reading reference so you can do that on your own. So what I'm going to finish with, if you guys have some questions or we'll have a quick discussion for the next 20 minutes. Let me go in the chat here because I saw there was a couple of things in the chat. All right, so make sure you check the chat when you get a second. The books were listed in there. The extra books by Mandy are in there. I think most of you saw it. Nathaniel has also said that there's an audio book on there if you like audio books. However, whatever floats your boat. All right, what else we got? Okay. There was a question, even though I can answer this publicly. Nathaniel asked about setting up altars. Setting up, there's no specific way how I would set up an altar or how I work with any of these archetypes of gods or goddesses. Just creating the altar should be centered around her images. For an example, I would definitely have her sigil on the altar. Preferably, in the Draconian book, I'll show you the sigil that I would use. There's a couple of different sigils. For Hecate, you can create your own out of this. I have something I use similar to this, and I'll tell you why, because it embodies all of her energy. That represents her trifold existence as a lunar deity. It has the 2 torches, the flames. All the symbology that we talked about, I would have. Now, if you want to create your own along those lines, incorporating those elements, that's fine too. Obviously, always the central things I have on an altar for a working like this, you should always have what we call an altar tile, which is a pentagram in the center. If you were going to use an image of Hecate, a picture, a statue, it should be the point of the pentagram, like Baphomet, the point should be facing down towards you. Hecate should be in the center. And because 3 is her sacred number, I would use 3 black candles. And I would place them in a point in a triangle, okay? One in the front where the pentagram point ends, one to the left, one to the right, because that, again, connects to her trifold existence that we talked about. Dragon's blood incense is a good incense to use for this ritual. other optional incenses that are spiritual talismans, you can use myrrh, sandalwood, combination of frankincense and myrrh, patchouli, something that's a bit pungent and got some kick to it. What I would recommend also on there, I always recommend sealing packs. You should always have a ritual chalice. You want to use, for her, red wine in your chalice or your elixir. You should have a bell or a Tibetan bowl, which I like to use instead of a traditional bell. You should use that for your opening and your closing. I do that sometimes in these guided meditations. I didn't use it for this one. All the elements, a dagger too, because what I would have for that, however you're going to open your ritual space, you're going to need a dagger to use it, whether it's drawing sigils over the altar, or sometimes you might be casting what we call the circle going around clockwise. I'd use your ritual dagger for that. And other, extra elements that you can connect to decorate your altar, serpents. If you can find replica black dogs, any symbols, you just use your creative ability. Okay, there's a good example there. Okay. Yeah, use that's cool. Use your creative ability. So she's using the 3 colors of was that red, black, and white? And they mentioned that, yeah, okay. So yeah, just use your creative ability and just incorporate any of her elements. As far as you're decorating an altar, I got her statue with serpents around it. So I use a lot of imagery of the serpents, pentagrams, the black dogs, any of those, her sigil, black candles. You can use the red and the white. I prefer to use the 3 black, but we talked about those 3 colors and what they symbolize in that first book that we read. So it's personal. There's no right or wrong way. Just, it's best you just see the purpose of doing this in these classes. And like a question like that, that's where your creativeness needs to come in now. And this is for everybody, not just Nathaniel. This is where you got to now put your stamp on it. So as long as you set up a ritual space for her with those themes, because remember, imagery is important because it connects to the energy of the spirit or the daemon or the archetype that you're working with. So anything along those lines is fine. That would be my recommendations. Now, how you do it or which way, that's entirely up to you. Okay. So hopefully that helps Nathaniel and everybody. All right. Yes, Liz. Yes, the name in the name of the dragon, Lucifer come. That was what I was saying. If that's what that question was. All right. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? We have about 15 minutes. Somebody want to raise your hand if you have a question. All right. I was about to go to myself. I saw my hand raised and I was about to unmute myself. That's fucking retarded, ain't it? All right. What you got, Mandy? You got to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I got it.
There you go.
Got it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good, loud and clear.
The fucking next house. Hear me now? When you were going through the ritual, when it says, when you smell that metallic blood smell, I actually tasted it.
That's good.
That's the only thing. The imagery, everything else, I felt the heaviness when all the snakes, everything, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Where did you get that from?
Okay, I made it up as I went along.
That was beautiful.
Okay,
it was absolutely stunning.
The only thing I read was the Invocation in the Draconian book. Everything else was made up on the fly.
Yeah, the lake. And then I like how you went from the lake to the cave. And that's exactly what I did. I just went,
good. And
then I saw this cave and I just walked. And then when you said smell, actually my mouth filled with blood.
Exactly. Good.
That's never happened before. So that's the only thing out of everything. And then for some reason I grabbed red, white, and black as opposed to black.
No. But that means something to you. That's fine. Just because I said 3 black, that doesn't mean shit. Again, I want you. That's beautiful. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's actually a brand new dagger that I just got. I consecrated that.
That's nice.
Consecrated that, pricked my finger, did
cool.
I had all the elements and the water because I wasn't even expecting to have a chalice and all this other stuff, but cool. Always have all the elements.
Right.
Prick my finger, dip it right as you said, taste the blood. literally,
Mm-hmm.
like as you were saying it, I pricked my finger, put my finger in the water element, and I drank the whole fucking thing, and it was a wrap after that. Like,
cool. Good. I'm
it
glad
was
to hear.
it was very different. I've never done that before. So it was
Glad
cool.
to hear. That's awesome. Glad to hear. Good.
It was cool. Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, cool. Anybody else got, if you want to add, I mean, I would be interested if you want to share an experience with the exercise, or if you have a question, now's your time. Because I will wrap this up in a few minutes. I want to make sure you guys got your questions answered. Or if you want to just share a quick experience. All right, Yvette, let's go to Yvette. What you got, Yvette?
Hi, question. How many times should I do the ritual to
As many
Hecate?
times or as many times as you feel the need. There is no, again,
Okay.
start training your mind based on your personal needs. Like for an example, I might feel the need to do it 4 times. You might feel the need to do it 10 times. You might feel the need to do it once and then 3 months later do it. But I will say this, you'll learn this if you take further classes with me. You shouldn't do the same ritual constantly over and over, because it actually destroys the potency of the ritual. You understand that?
Yeah.
It's okay. I recommend, if I repeat rituals, now unless you're doing something for a certain amount of days, it's okay to do it a few times or several times initially in the beginning, and then maybe revisit it later when need be. But you'll find out, because this is coming from you, the more it's like, look at it like trying something for the first time, of food, right? And when it's good for the first time, you never had it. Or let's be real, look at it like, excuse my language, look like getting some pussy for the first time, or getting some dick for the first time.
Right.
It's amazing, but then what happens after it just becomes,
it gets old.
It gets normal, because it's not fresh no more. Let's keep it real. We're adults.
Yeah.
So you should never, even if you write your own rituals, you should never, don't beat them to death to the point where you destroy the potency of the ritual. So, but in the beginning, do it as, if you need to do it several times till you feel like you really grasp or got what you needed, that's okay in the beginning. So feel free to do it as many times as you need.
One more question.
No, go ahead, sure.
If I do one ritual to, let's say, Bilal, and can I do immediately after that one ritual, let's say, to do it to Boone or
that's entirely
I can do that too? Okay, it doesn't miss the energy?
Right. Okay. If you feel like you can absorb that energy, that's up to you. If you feel like you have the internal fortitude to deal with it back to back. So I've done it. There's been periods I've done stuff like that. If I feel good, if I'm feeling right. If you feel good and you feel right, but if you feel like you're forcing yourself to do it just for the sake of getting it done, don't do it.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
So that you need to gauge that. Definitely. It's a good question though. Okay. Anybody else want to share something or have a question? This will be the time. Raise your hand, talk. All right. You got Rashad. Got a few more minutes. Want to make sure you guys getting your money's worth. You're paying. Go ahead, Rashad.
Yeah, I was gonna share. This is probably one of the most visual out of all the ones I've done with you back to back with the different courses.
Right.
This was something else. I had a lot of nature elements pop up.
Okay.
Going from the cave and then going from the lake and into the cave. As I'm seeing the shadow, I almost started seeing the shadows like before you were saying it.
Cool.
I was seeing it.
Good. That's good.
And as you said, it seems like you keep trying to get close,
and it kept getting farther away.
That was actually happening before you even said it. I saw the shadows. I said, okay. I was going. I said, okay, it's still back there. And some of the things that I witnessed, through the visualization was a lot of threes. So I saw a trident.
Okay.
Well, first I saw a cross. I didn't know exactly what that was about, but then it's a crossroad. I guess DT you had said later on. So first I saw a cross, then that almost like went to a trident, and then it was some threes, now I'm already forgot. I know at the end, I think it was like a few bees came into play, and then serpents came in threes.
Good.
And then
and I want to real quick before I forget on the thing when you said you mentioned seeing a lot of other things in nature, right? Now remember, she said in the invocation, if you were listening in the end, or if everybody was listening, it says she is the ruler over nature and herbs and everything connected to nature. So I wanted to point that out because you said that. And keep in mind, we also reflect on this after. There's a lot of things that take place in a working like that consciously and subconsciously. So you might have a continuation of this in dreams. And here's the fucking crazy part. You might have something, a dream or an experience 4 months from now that could connect to what we just did right now. That's how this works. So keep that in mind, but go ahead.
Yeah. So that's good stuff. So then like I was kind of knocked out. It was like I was, in the cinema or something. I wasn't necessarily following, the words, but
no, that's fine.
And then as these threes were coming up, I saw a butterfly. It was almost like it went into a head. The serpents kind of flew into. It wasn't maybe a butterfly exactly, but it had that kind of.
I got you.
Three with the head and then the wings.
Well, the wings is very draconian in nature. You'll see forms of Lucifer, Hecate, Lilith, Naama. Sometimes they appear as winged creatures. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm not trying to dictate to you your personal experience, but I'm just saying maybe something comes later in some of your work. They do appear as winged creatures, especially Lucifer when he ascends. This work I'll do with Lucifer ascending to the throne of Lucifer, which he'll take flight, and he's a winged creature, almost looks like a gargoyle or a vampire, has wings. And sometimes it looks like a butterfly creature, but weird looking.
That's exactly,
okay. Just so you know.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that helps.
Okay.
So I couldn't describe it. That describes it right there. Actually. And getting to the blood part, it was just like Mandy said, it was something else. I felt the blood. I tasted the blood. Watching it drip into the cup. It was, and then feeling the sensation.
Yeah.
In the mouth was quite intense. It was something. But I tend to, some of the things like Hecate, where I don't have any background, is real interesting because my oldest daughter gravitates towards Hecate.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's cool.
It'll come. Yeah, I go. I come and gather. I get some information or whatnot. She's 13, and I go, wow, this is something else because I've read a little bit. I don't have a lot of experience on Hecate. I come in, like you were saying before, and I kind of I'm not gonna lie, I kind of have a tendency to, just how I am with the books and
but that's different. I know.
I gotta grab them. I gotta learn.
No, that's different. I know how you are because I know you a little bit personal. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And
I could be an information whore, too. But sometimes, I'll get on something and it's. I try to.
But let me clarify that. It's good to be an information whore. That's not the bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's bad if you're not applying it. So being a whore for the information, I'm a whore. If I turn this camera around and showed you all the books, I'm at a space where I got books I got to store in my garage. I'm a book fiend. I'm like a crackhead when it comes to books. But what I was trying to say, just so there's no misconception of what I said earlier, I just know people that collect books, but they don't even read them, is what I was talking about. I'm talking about not just the people that collect the books and just read them. I was more talking about, I know people just to collect books to say they have them, and majority of them haven't even opened the books up and got into them, read them, and studied them. But I know where you're coming from.
And I feel exactly what you're saying, man. I feel exactly.
How old is your daughter?
13. She's 13.
Remember, Hecate she's the protector of young children. She's benevolent to her children. She is a protector, like in other cultures and pantheons, like you have Bes in ancient Egypt. He protects mothers. He protects the children in the womb of the mothers. So does Hecate. She has a very strong affinity to children.
Okay.
So I'm saying that because what stuck out to me when you said your daughter gravitates towards her, some say she speaks to young children, adolescent, teenagers, and even younger in their dreams. I guarantee if you talk to your daughter, she's probably has an imaginary friend. I will put any amount of money on it.
Yeah, she had, definitely when she was growing up, she had one.
Yeah. And usually those are all symbols and signs of Hecate's presence. She tends to reveal herself early to some of her devotees when they're children or young teenagers. So that's something to keep an eye on. It just stood out to me when you said it. So that's something you might want to keep an eye on.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was awesome, man.
Cool.
That was awesome.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that with everybody. All right, let's go to Luz. Let me unmute you. Go ahead, Luz.
Yeah, so I kind of felt a little bit like a loser because I can't visualize anything, right?
It's okay.
So I'm black and like lines and.
But that's okay. Go ahead, but go ahead.
I did taste, it was just really citrusy. All of a sudden I had like this, like vitamin C, like when it starts melting in your mouth. That's
I've heard that before. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then what, I forgot. It says Joe, but I don't think that's his name. Rashad, what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did see like a flock, and I don't know if they were birds or bats, but it was like the image, like if it was painted in my, like with
I got you.
And it was just the body and then the wings, and there was a whole bunch of them just flocking in the sky. So when you mentioned the wings and stuff, I was like, oh great. So and then I feel breath, cold breath, just like when someone just, and it happens to me a lot where I feel, that's where when I feel like my guides are with me or something, because it's a cold breath and it's always cold. It's not like hot, and that's what I felt. So
yeah,
with the visualization, I was lacking a little bit, but I did see.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Lines, but then.
What I would do for what Luz said, and for everybody else listening that might have had like something like that just appeared, like Rashawn said, you heard Luz say it, heard Mandy say some things. What you should do as a continuation of this work, create something to invoke or evoke Hecate, because we would be evoking in this case, to get clarity on what that was. I would center your continuation. If I was going to do some continuation work from this, like I'm going to use, since we're talking with Luz right now, I would use what were those birds? What did they mean? Show and reveal to me what was the symbol of the birds? What message were you trying to convey to me? And then sit, the answer will come. I'm just giving you an example. That's kind of the way I want to put that out there before we finish, because that's the way you follow up on work like this, that you had something, but it's okay. Like you said, visualization is not an easy skill right out the gate. And if a lot of people struggle with it. So I would suggest to Luz and other people listening, try basic concentration exercises first. That'll help with your visualization skill. Let me give you an example. You can use any fixed object. I like to use a candle. This is not a ritual or anything. It's basically a mental exercise. All right. Sit yourself in a comfortable position where the candle can be eye level, where you can just sit like in a straight back chair with your hands on your knees. Stare and gaze at the candle. It's just a mental exercise. It's not spiritual. It's not a ritual. This will enhance your concentration, your focus, and your visualization powers. First, do breathing. The reason why we always do decompression before any ritual is we want to make sure oxygen and blood is flowing and we're removing the stale oxygen and energy. You should always decompress before any exercise. I don't care what it is. And it's as simple as 3 deep breaths like we did, in through the nose, out through the nose. And then the final breath should always be a very deep inhale through the nose. Hold it for as long as you can. And then you pucker your lips like a whistle and exhale. Like, you'll feel, trust me. So that's to make sure if you're sleepy, drowsy, any negative energy, and also it clears the mind because it gets the circulatory and the blood system flowing. Do that first, and then have the candle in front of you, or any object that a candle seems to work better. It's easy to capture the image in the flame. Stare at it for a while and just gaze and look at it for several minutes or so and lock the image in your mind's eye. Once you feel like you've got it, Close your eyes, but still now see the candle burning like you saw it when your eyes were open. Stay for it as long as you can and do it on and off. And then once you start seeing, it becomes easy to capture the images. Now you're knowing your visualization skills are getting sharper. So if anybody, and I know there's a lot of people that have that problem. I get emails about it all the time. If anybody's having visualization issues, do concentration exercises like that. There's books out there on it. I can't really think of anything offhand. That's something I got from an old Sufi pamphlet that I when I was studying Sufism years back. That's a Sufi exercise ritual. It's real basic. It's something they teach you in Sufism to get your meditation and visualization skills solid. So I would suggest anybody having issues with focusing and concentrating, do and also Yogi Rag Chama, the breath. That's a book everybody should own to practice their breathing exercises, okay? Science of Breath is the name of the book. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. It's been around since the 1900s. It's an old book. He's a yogi, swami / guru, but there's great exercises in there to deal with all that focus, concentration. Your breathing has a lot to do with it. 9 out of 10 times, people that struggle with stuff like that, they're usually mouth breathers, and they may not know it, but they tend to breathe more out of their mouth, whether not so much in through the nose and out through the nose. A good way to test that, if you have the ability, you live with someone, you have a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, or a family member, ask somebody to record you if they can while you sleep, or observe you for a few minutes while you sleep, and see if you're breathing out of your mouth. Then go into the Yogi Rakshama book, Science of Breath, and you'll see there's stuff in there to address that. Mouth breathing causes a lot of problems. And Science of Breath, or breath control, as we call it on this path, is very important for your ritual work and to enhance your skills, okay?
Okay. I do something similar to with the sun. I look at the sun in the morning,
okay,
and close my eyes, and I'm able to visualize certain things. But just real quick too, because I know we're in time, but
no, go ahead.
2 days ago, I went for a walk with my son, and when we walked out, there was 3 dead baby birds.
Oh,
3
wow.
right in front. And I was like, wow, the Hecate class is right around the corner. It made me sad,
right,
but kind of made me feel, because I always have the 3. It's the dragon, Lucifer, and Hecate. So everything around me is always 3. And then we went for a walk, and we came back, and there was a dead lizard, and it was huge. The lizard was huge on the street, and we buried all of them.
Okay.
And then today, now when I see the imagery, it's like everything was flying like alive. And I'm wondering if it's like, I've been asking for certain guidance in like.
Well, here's something Hecate says right now, and I'm telling you. Remember what you just said. You saw birds, like a flock of birds ascending, correct? Mm-hmm. Before the class, you saw a small group of birds that were dead. It's clear what you need to go into, and I could tell you what you saw, but you need to get that understanding for yourself. It's really dealing along the line, something personal with you that has died or ran its course. Mm-hmm. And what you just saw in the current ritual you did, the flock of birds ascending or flying away, was your resurrection or renewal. Now, in what shape or form, I don't want to give you that. I want you to go into your work. There's something going on right now as we speak, something away about yourself that you needed to destroy or release and was just resurrected. Now you need to find out what that is.
Yeah.
So you saw all that for a reason. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah.
That's
cool.
good stuff. Good stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got a couple more minutes because I got to wrap it up soon. Got some food here, and I got to go see my sister for the first time since this whole COVID shit popped off. Anybody else have anything they want? I think there's one. Oh, there's some in the chat. Let me see, make sure I didn't miss anything in here. Okay, I just think that's some good comments by who is that? I don't know why I take my damn glasses off. Fooling myself like I could see shit. Hold on. Okay, Lady Mystic is just typing some stuff in. Says thanks, I appreciate it. Some suggestions on ritual. Okay. They're just people just suggesting, yeah. Write things down in your journal afterwards. Good advice. Recollect what you can. I would suggest follow-up work, which is very important, like we just discussed. Okay, so that's what's in the chat. Anybody else have anything before we wrap it up? Anybody else? Everybody's good? Sure? All right, cool. Listen, I definitely appreciate you guys taking the class. I definitely appreciate you guys. I know some of you support on all levels. You're on the Patreon page. You guys watch the YouTube. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I greatly appreciate the support. Some of yous, I know, like, he's been kind of quiet, but I know, like Elvis, he's been here since day one. He's been taking my classes. I don't think he's missed one class in probably 3 or 4 years. Mandy's she's been in the game now for a minute. Kim's a newcomer there. Good to see everybody. Say hello to Kim. She's brand new. So welcome her. So hopefully we see Kim again in the future. Nathaniel's taken a few classes. He's been around. Lady Mystic, we go back a couple years. She's actually made a few trips down here at some of our events. But long story short, I want to thank all you guys. Raven's a veteran. She's like that old crusty person that don't want to leave the house. I'm just kidding. But no, honestly, I appreciate all you guys supporting, taking the class, and hopefully whenever I'll see you guys, I'm sure at some point in the future. You guys be safe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will get back to normal. Things are starting to brighten up a little bit here, hopefully everywhere else where you guys are at. All right. And I will talk to you guys soon. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and infernal blessings to all. All right. All right.